He told me in an interview last year, and I quote, "The little boys and girls, there it is on your screen, in parts of our country in 2022, who slept in a shipping container last night to get through the hours of darkness in Indigenous communities," unquote. I think he spoke for millions of Australians when he said, and I quote, "Going to a meeting here in Canberra and giving 10 acknowledgements to country, that's fine." And I don't say that in a disparaging way. But I want to know how it is we're going to support those kids. I want to know how it is we're going to get better health outcomes and lower mortality rates, more kids through university, just finishing primary school and secondary school to start with, unquote. Well, what we see today in the political world is very few Peter Duttons. The rich seem to want to purge themselves of their unearned income by voting for the left and the Teals, but the battlers and the strugglers are looking to people like Dutton to be the architect of their future. Let's face it, Labor at the last election won 32.6% of the vote, but won 8 seats. Won with 32.6% of the vote. The Coalition won 35.7% of the vote, not a good result, but they lost 18 seats. Now, of course, Peter Dutton's being vilified for saying no to The Voice. Well, he was in Alice Springs last week. He met locals. He repeated his call for the Albanese government to restore law and order. In an outstanding piece by Janet Albrechtsen last week, she recounted a conversation with Peter Dutton to form the basis of a superb piece she wrote in the Australian newspaper. Now, with criticism of Dutton swirling around, demonised as much as fossil fuels by the other side, Peter Dutton said, and I quote, "The intimidation has no effect on me whatsoever. I've been around long enough to know what I believe in, to stand up for what I believe is in our country's best interest, and I won't waver from that," unquote. Now, you will recall that Noel Pearson, a distinguished Indigenous figure, who once Peter Dutton said no to The Voice, Noel Pearson described that decision as a Judas betrayal of our country. Peter Dutton's response to that was splendid. He said, and I quote, "Noel Pearson's a person with whom I've worked over the years, and I won't be the first or the last to be personally slighted by him," unquote. And then this point. Now, remember, in my interview with Matt Canavan last week, I asked him why big industrial outfits like BlueScope Steel and Orica and Rio Tinto and BHP seem to be publicly supporting the so-called safeguard mechanism where, as you know, allegedly Australia's 215 biggest polluters, who are also the biggest employers, will be forced by Bowen's legislation to cut their carbon dioxide footprint by about 5% a year until the end of the decade to deliver Bowen's 2030 climate goal, while the rest of the world increases carbon dioxide emissions, I might add. Well, I asked Matt Canavan, given that this so-called safeguard mechanism will be immensely damaging to manufacturing plants, which are intensive producers of carbon dioxide, I asked him, what is the corporate world up to in supporting such a punitive mechanism? I said that corporates were gutless, and I'll always maintain that view. Matt Canavan was much more courteous to say they were frightened of government, and they tell him a different story when they speak to him. Well, back to Peter Dutton, who said, in relation to those people in business and in sport who've gone public in their support for a yes vote, Peter Dutton nailed it when he said, and I quote, "I think a lot of people, and particularly a lot of leaders in business and sport, fear the retaliation and retribution if they don't sign up to The Voice." He said, and I think that's regrettable and offensive in a democracy like ours, unquote. Dutton didn't miss when he said, quote, "I've never seen a more poorly run debate. I've never seen a more deceptive Prime Minister trying to starve the Australian public of information that they need." He said it's without precedent. He added, "This would be the most significant change to our Constitution since Federation, and I've never seen a more shambolic process by government."